Okay, Victor.
Awesome. Well, I'm very humbled to be in front of you guys. I remember being in this classroom for probably about half my classes. I went through the evening weekend program when it was only evenings. So it was night school. It was pretty crazy. I was a salesman for Sun Microsystems at the time. And in like one of these crazy, because you're so type A and doing your MBA, I was salesman of the year and a 4.0 student at Berkeley the same semester. So it was actually a lot of fun. I mean, I remember learning so much here. So my journey after Berkeley was actually a little bit crazy. So I ended up giving up the corporate thing here in Silicon Valley, and I got an offer from McKinsey to be one of their first people in Central Europe. Woo. And that's because I had skills. And the skills were my language skills. They needed people with an American mindset working and had a working knowledge of some of the Eastern European languages. My parents were refugees from Poland. And so I knew how to ask my parents on where the bathroom is as a 7-year-old, and this gave me skills to run board meetings in Poland, apparently. But the experience was actually, really fantastic, right? I mean, my heart was with Silicon Valley. It wasn't actually with Poland, so that's why I didn't stay. But I got like the bug, and I got a much wider perspective of just being, a highly paid sales guy in technology. I literally like how things are made, how we can affect business and kind of make our dent. And I joined a startup that spun out of SRI Labs when I came here. And this was actually and it was a bunch of Berkeley professors, and it was a voice lab 20 years ago, 15 years ago. These were some of the original machine learning algorithms on the planet, because our voice changes all the time. And then so these models are always evolving, and you have to kind of take the input from this and learn. And we even have a couple patents in it and stuff like that. It was actually kind of fun. I did that, did a management buyout, and I ended up at Sun. I'm sorry, this time I ended up at SAP. Spent almost 10 years at SAP. I did a couple things. I ran product strategy. I ran new solution adoption. And then they asked me to run the data business. So this was a fledgling $200 million, like a bag of parts kind of a thing. And then they asked me to be one of the first guys to kick off their in-memory compute stuff. So I'm very much on the technology side and kind of gave up my sales hat and moved into the product. And I love it. And there was a big problem that we had inside the data thing, and that's how I started Yeti Data. I'm not here to talk about my company as much, but I will gladly sprinkle things all over the place. I want to give you guys a much more interactive, kind of hands-on view of what data looks like from the corporate strategy side when it touches us. Okay? So be prepared for questions, or else my presentation is going to be super short. Okay. So first things first. Here is a snapshot of my email history from Neiman Marcus on February 1. Right? And the funny thing is, this just in, new swim collections in January, right? But tell me what's going on here. What do you think is going on?
They're emailing you all the way up. I'm assuming it's Christmas, and then they just stop until 6 weeks later.
Okay.
Basically, they view sending you an email as free. And so they are just going to send you as many emails as they can, because they're all free.
Yeah, for sure. What else is going on?
Wait, so first name, last name, address. It's not personalized. It's just like list the number of people who say dear Neiman Marcus.
It's free, so it's garbagey. Okay. What else?
So no concept of what battering a customer is. You have 5 emails in one day.
5 emails in one day. What else?
Well, I see that you sort them to unroll me, so is it trying to do spam detection on it, or?
So I did the unroll me. I unrolled me so I could get this, right? So that I could literally show you guys actually the raw stream itself, right? What else?
Too many last calls, so it's kind of not very credible.
Right, it's all noise. And you know what? I mean, Neiman Marcus, this is a company that made itself for selling $800 sweaters, right? I know you. I know that purse that you want. It costs $30,000 and I'm going to sell it to you. And this is what they send out. What do you think's going on with their data strategy? This is how the company is viewed in MBA classrooms, right? By the way. Yes? Arun?
Sending out all offers to all customers.
Yeah, it's junky. Denise?
Do they just have departments who are not communicating, and so everyone's just sending out everything?
Exactly. So what's going on, right? Oh my God, I can't make my number here. I got a free email, right? I'm going to send it out. Oh my God, I'm not making my number here. I need to get the traffic up. Oh my God, I'm not doing this. And nobody is actually watching the store, right? It's almost as if you walked into a store and every salesperson badgered you like crazy and like tried to put their arms on you and stuff like that. It's kind of crazy. Guess what happens when I show this to a CEO of a company? What do they see? Specifically, I'm going to give you guys a strong hint. Email, 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 email up to here, and then nothing for 6 weeks. Justin.
Like an automated schedule, so people are taking vacation and they're stopping and seeing emails.
That's true, but if you're a CEO, you're not. That's not what you're seeing. You might be. That's very true. Yes, Denise.
Really for business planning, so they're just struggling to make their numbers for review here.
What would you say about the health of their business, Denise? This is just an email string. This is how the world sees data. This is their interaction with their customer base. Their suppliers see this because their suppliers are customers. What do you think is the state of their business? Little bit more background. Go ahead, Ted.
Pretty rough. I mean, like 60% off, 80% off. Like, obviously trying to meet ground cost for shipping for Christmas. Like, they're just pure, only what you said. They're trying to get their Christmas bonus metric.
You know they filed their S1 right around the beginning of December, right? They were trying to go public. What do you think is happening? I'm sorry? Boost the quarter. Or not boost the quarter. And pull your S1 and completely miss everything by holding the one thing that they held near and dear, which is their relationship with their customers, and sacrificed them out so that they could boost their numbers, right? Their suppliers started rolling back. They pulled their IPO filing, right? Literally, like and then there's actually a whole bunch of news today that I decided not to put in, but this was actually like the New York Post never catches anything early, and here they are because somebody got the email string and saying, God, something is really up with that company, right? Think about this. What's wrong with how they think about things? What are they doing with the data? What's important to them, right? Your data has to mirror your business strategy, right? And this is something gone amok, right? And so this is when every time we get an opinion that something is free, we've got to watch out. Okay, so I just wanted to kind of go in and say, oh my God, this is how a data strategy becomes visible on the other side. Okay, so I'm here to really just kind of talk about three things. And I'd love it to be super interactive, or it's going to be super short, or else for the 7th time I could pitch my business again, which I'd be happy to do, but I think that that's not necessarily the most valuable use of your time. I want to talk about the 3 time zones of data. Right? This is so important because when people tell you about what they're doing, all of a sudden, some of them are living in the past, and some of them are making a projection in the future, and some are like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do today. So I'm going to give you guys a real practical framework on how to think about the 3 time zones of data and how you can use them interactively and use the data from the future to help the past and vice versa, because I think that that's super important. And with computers being the way they are, give you guys an example. If you wanted to run a business simulation for a small little business unit like ours at SAP, so $500 million or whatever, right? That business simulation took a month. Up until literally maybe 4 years ago. So if you can only run one business simulation, then all of a sudden you're only running one, maybe two to do your business planning. Now with all these bigger, more powerful computers and stuff like that, you could run thousands, even millions of simulations and run a Monte Carlo analysis on it to literally figure out where are the weak spots of your business, right? And then the second thing I'm going to talk about is the data about your data. And we're actually going to build a model about this thing and see exactly how much we could figure out from one data point. Okay? And then if absolutely we run out of time and we want to talk about really boring stuff, we could go down into the tools world and we could talk about it for days. Okay? I've built plenty of businesses in this space, and it's just, I don't know if you're going to learn that much over here, right? I'd rather give you guys that MBA-like view of like, holy crap, this is what my customers see of me with something as silly as not having a real email strategy, right? And then my suppliers are picking it up and the press is picking it up, et cetera. Right. Okay, so the three time zones of data, right? You want to kind of come in and ask yourself, what problem are you solving, right? That's like the Uber thing, that's the McKinsey question, et cetera, right? But you want to break it down into this. The first thing is first. You want to create kind of a knowledge base of what you know. Call it a system of record. Call it whatever you want. It's something that gives you an assessment of, this is what I got, right? It's your little like checklist. This is how good I feel about the data I have. You know, this is Jack, and I don't necessarily trust Jack, but it's the only data I have. Or this comes from our internal transaction systems, and I could trust this. Or this comes from our auditors, and I could trust this, et cetera, right? You want to do and take an analysis of a system of record. Now, the funny thing is, in a lot of cases, the system of record is built for the wrong reasons. And we'll talk about that in a little bit, but you got to make an assessment of it. So think about this system of record. Then you would think I would tell you about, okay, I'm going to move from the past, and then I'm going to move to today, and then I'm going to the future, but I'm going to do the exact opposite. Then what we do is build a system of prediction. So that's why AI, prediction, machine learning, all this fancy stuff that is coming around. You're literally saying, if I know this, what do I think is going to happen here? I could be totally wrong. Based on my sales last quarter, based on the fact that 90% of my customers buy that buy a mystery book will buy a mystery book every 3 weeks, right? Based on the fact that, Harry Potter sold this many books the last time a Harry Potter book came out, I'm going to sell this many this time, right? So what you want to do is literally say, okay, what is the data telling me? What do I think it's telling me? And you want to guess, and you want to guess wrong, believe it or not. You want to make crazy guesses. And you want to use computers to help you out with, as much of the heavy lifting as possible. You don't have to do it yourself anymore, right? It's not an Excel spreadsheet anymore that you have to build for, and then just use open source algorithms and see what pops out, right? So you want this system of prediction. And then, based on what you think is going to happen, then you want to do something, right? Where was Neiman breaking down? It was here. My guess is they have some kind, actually we know them pretty well, which is why we use them, right? They have a system of prediction. And then their business guy said, forget it. We need numbers. Throw all that stuff out the window, and I want action. right? And then you're not using personal profiles, and then you're sending 7 emails a day, and you're doing all kinds of ridiculous things, and you come out like a buffoon, right? But this is where you're going to do something about it, right? And
so this matches up with the framework that we often see, descriptive, predictive, and prescriptive analytics, right? That's kind of the hierarchy, and most organizations, their data approach sort of stops at the system of record. They have enterprise software, they have CRM, whatever, and that's kind of the bottom. And then, the AI, machine learning is the next level, and then this is almost like coming up with actuators of some kind.
yeah, I mean, you got to make it work. That's right. I mean, I think, yes, absolutely. I tried to make it very pedestrian, as in like, hey, listen, right? We're all business leaders. When we wake up in the morning, where exactly am I operating, right? I'm trying to do something, right? The reality is, based on where computers are today, you should be doing something relative to what you think is actually going to happen, not necessarily to what happened, right? Because then all of a sudden your systems could all of a sudden start conflicting with each other, et cetera, et cetera. Now, there's a whole bunch of other tools and all that other stuff. Basically there's like the system of infrastructure and reporting and all that other stuff. And then I put this separately, but is the system of machine learning, which is really really more of like a feedback loop. That any time, because here is where you make a prediction. I think this is going to happen. Then you do something about it, and then the result actually happens here, right? Because the result happens in your system of record. So that's why you need all these kind of tied together, and then all of a sudden you get a delta, a difference, saying, oh my God, I thought that 33,000 people were going to buy that book, and 500,000 people did. Boy, did we screw up. We're super happy we screwed up, right? But boy, did we screw up. And then, what did we learn from it, right? Did we give too much of a discount? Did we, barrage all the people, whatever? I mean, there's a million things that they could have tested, right? And specifically, we developed a very practical framework with our customer, who is one of the largest, think of them as the Barnes & Noble of Central Europe. And they're, I don't know, a $10 billion company or so. They do business in, a dozen countries and stuff like that. But they sell books, they sell videos, they sell stuff that Amazon really likes to sell too. And Amazon in Warsaw, for the last year, they've been building the largest building in Poland with a large Amazon logo on it as you land an airplane in Warsaw, saying, we're coming. Right? Which is a great strategy. Right? And so let's just say they're a little bit scared because they know that their act is not together. Right? So the great news for vendors like us, all of a sudden there's a compelling reason for customers to do something about it. But they have, let's talk about a online/offline blah, blah, blah bookstore. What do you think are their systems of record that they have? I'm going to make you guys go through this. Sorry, I only have like 7 slides, so make it fun. What's a system of record?
Point of sale transaction log.
POS transactions, very good. Yep, 70% of their sales are done online. What other systems of record? I'm sorry?
Inventory movements. Inventory movements. So
I'm not sure.
inventory movements, so for each of the products that they have, they're tracking.
Inventory, absolutely. What else? Customer demographics, kind of. Remember, this is Eastern Europe.
I don't know, bank data, credit cards.
Credit cards, bank data, absolutely. What else? Location-based. What store you shop in? Where you live, maybe? What else do you think they have? Come on, this is something we do every day. We're working for Neiman. We're trying to help them out here. How about weblogs? Weblogs, they have supplier data, they've got tons and tons and tons of the data, and almost none of it is built to kind of work together, right? So that's what we help them do, actually. What kind of predictions do you think they're making?
I said anticipating sales, I mean predicting sales, or you're trying to anticipate sales and record purchases as a portion of sales.
Yeah. They're a merchandiser at heart, by the way, right? I mean, they've been in this business for 100 years, right?
Imagine there's some kind of recommendation.
We're starting to get there, yeah.
Yeah, recommending more of the same products. Yeah, that's
Exactly, right? So this is a much more deeper version of the recommendation stuff. You know what we did? Is we did exactly everything you guys said, right? And our results were okay. I mean, okay in the sense that everything, all the numbers went up 8x, right? But we were thinking that we're gonna go up, 20x. We added one piece of data. And the results went and tripled from our results. You know what we added? What do you think it was?
I think like result from interaction with all of your like prediction action, prescriptive action.
So that got us along the right path. But what specific piece of data do you think we added? Remember, we're in the bookstore, movies, music. It's the place I go to kind of spoil myself, culturally, video games, kind of a thing. They're one of the largest in the world that do this stuff.
Age?
What's that?
Age?
Nope.
Anything?
Nope. Yeah, it's not about people.
Maybe some prediction of what is trending in the US and then would move there.
We did that too, yeah. Good, we're getting there, we're moving the needle, but there was one thing that really crazily moved the needle more than anything else. I mean, literally triple. All right.
What's trending on Excel?
Close. So this is what we did, is we introduced the product premiere date and literally said which day was something new introduced and what people bought something new in the first 30 days of introduction. Actually, what people bought before it was actually really introduced, right? Because you could reserve some stuff online or whatever, especially in video games and stuff like that. And that tripled. One little silly thing that was kind of trapped inside of a crazy, crazy thing.
When you say 8x and triple, what are you referring to?
So tripled, what we were using as a proxy was customer response. And so customer response was measured one of three ways. It was email opens, it was text, and then it was actually, we could click onto the promotion and get people to buy directly on a website, which isn't, it's only 30% of their business right now. Yes, sir?
Do you mean that it was a measure of, or a way to identify people who were like timely buyers?
It was a way to measure people that love to buy the new stuff, right? I'm passionate about Agatha Christie books or whatever, right? I mean, they don't have the same authors that we do necessarily, but like movies, or oh my God, I've been waiting for this video game release, right? Video game releases are huge over there, right? And by targeting that, that demographic, or not necessarily demographic, but that group of people, the email turned not into something that I'm selling you. It turned into what?
Newsflash.
You're informing me. I'm passionate about this and you're giving me information that I need to have, right? I mean, this is it. I skipped it. I don't know why. Maybe I didn't have time to read the blogs, blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden, guess what happened? They became relevant. So they went from the spammers that Neiman Marcus shouldn't be, and even though they tell you in their corporate statement and stuff like that, I didn't want to shame them or whatever, but let's tell you that they're relevant to their customers. Yes, Ron?
So if you're originally flagging people who typically buy stuff new, how do you, as a client, avoid just thinking, oh, this will work for everybody, let me just spam everyone when something new comes out?
So what we do is we come up with something like this. And we say, all right, we go create, 4 or 5, so 5 segments or whatever, and we will sit there and say, these people are going to be above 90%, right? Whereas these people are going to be here, right? So here you're risking spamming, right? Here is where you're informative, and here is where you're trying to sell, and here's where you're being annoying, right? You actually might be testing something, right? If I've never sold you a video game before, and then all of a sudden I want to pitch you a video game, but you want to do that in terms of a test instead of like have any expectations of actually selling a video game, right? Believe it or not, that was the reason of trying to sell me swimwear in January, right? They're actually trying to see whether I'm the kind of guy who buys stuff early, right? Yes, sir.
So look, we've learned that if you have the data in the right format, and you're trying, you know what your target feature is, right?
Yeah.
Like buy propensity or click propensity or whatever. And it's a relatively simple exercise to come up with a prediction.
Exactly.
And then it's also relatively easy to test your prediction,
Exactly.
through some kind of closed loop system. But it seems like the hard part is actually getting the data into that, spreadsheet, right? And so the system of record, it's not just about what data do you have, but how is that data organized and formatted, and how do you extract it from all of these different silos and bring it together into a place where you can do this analysis. So for companies that have these systems of record, which were designed for completely different purposes,
right.
The marketing guys they're interested in just tracking, sales for their bonus pools or their reports, and then these other people are tracking, inventory because they're interested in
keeping their inventory turns low,
right? Whatever. How do you, how much work is it to actually go into one of these companies? It's not just about legacy technology; it's about legacy data organization and figure out ways to organize it so that you can do these relatively simple analytics.
Right. So you're absolutely right. And that was the genesis behind Yeti in the first place, was how do you solve I know this sounds really cheesy, the big hairy problem of getting the data to kind of line up, right? I ran all the data tools that came from really almost like the accounting side of things. So if you think about these large ERP systems, whether it's Oracle or IBM or SAP or Salesforce or whatever, you pay your taxes on that system of record, right? You pay your people based on that system of record. And so it has very little tolerance for data that's not perfect.
Well, plus I think, because they're relational databases, the way the data is formatted is based on the questions that they want to ask.
Exactly.
And those questions that people were thinking about when they set these systems up are not the questions that we're interested in asking now.
That's right.
And so, can you go back and redo all of the formatting of that data?
So we have an opinion on that, and can I get to that in the next section? Because that's literally one of those things that we wrestle with every day, and give you guys a little bit of insight on that stuff. Okay? So anyway, the most important thing that I want you guys to take away from this thing is, what time zone am I in? Did I make a prediction? Do I need to do something now? Or is this an issue with stuff that I have laying around someplace that I'd like to use and that I can't, and maybe it's in the wrong format, whatever, but it's really system of record, right? And then what is the problem that I want to solve about it? So just literally put it in a bucket and say, what do I need to do about it, right? This will help you immensely, because this will help you with vendors, this will help you with data scientists, et cetera, right? Okay, data about data, right? And I know you guys probably have kind of gone on this thing, right? Metadata. What is metadata? Sounds super cool, sounds huge. Someone give me an example of metadata?
Would it be summary data? Something that just explains, like, you know, the average, for example?
It can be. Let's build something. I love to ski when I get a chance. And it's snowing right now, and I am heading down to Southern California tonight instead of going skiing, unfortunately. But let's say we're in the ski business, right? We're going to build some metadata together, right? And our job here is to be marketers. And I know you guys have gone down the marketing tack a little bit, but I think the reason why it's good to use an example in the marketing realm is because it's something that we know and understand, whereas if I gave you something about, you know, making predictions as far as, you know, I don't know, mining, right, you can't relate to it. But here's what we did. We sold one pair of skis for $1,100. And let's just say today. What do we know from this one data point? Come on, think. Yes, Sal?
We know it's someone who likes to ski, who has a willingness to pay $1,100.
So it's expensive, right? This is on the expensive side of skis. Exactly right.
Do we know that from this one data point? Maybe. I mean, other
Good
data,
point.
like,
Good point. Fair enough. We kind of do from, but let's just say maybe. Okay. What else do we know?
People buy skis on this date.
On this date, today. Why is the date important if we're in the business of selling skis?
It's a seasonal business.
It's a seasonal business. Where are we in the season? It's freaking almost over, right? 2 years ago, the season was over, right? So if you looked at the seasonality of this business, right, we're here. What else do we know?
People buy skis online.
Online, good. What else? If they buy online, what else do we know about it? Something very important. Yes?
like location, browser information.
We know where they are because we got to ship something to them, right?
Could we infer that maybe that 17% off had an impact?
We could discount, absolutely. Right?
You can look at their page dwell time. Like, did they sit there staring at it for 5 hours before pulling the trigger, or are they awesome deal and buy it now?
I call that digital fumes, right? Exactly, right? Are they like an instantaneous shopper, right, et cetera?
We could see if those five-star reviews had any impact.
Ah, nice. Right?
Along those lines, if the top seller sticker on the
Ah.
I'm kind of wondering why it's a top seller if only one pair is sold.
That's a different issue. Well, but I mean, this is just, we're talking about a single data point, right? Just a single thing came in, right? That could be, but you're right. So let's take a look at about, metadata, the way you should think about it is the data about data, right? Because I know this, what exactly, what else do I know? Right, and this is a little bit of, that's going to help us with the next part, is how do we go out and start unifying data sets that weren't necessarily built to be unified. Because guess what? We know where the data was created. We can also, to dig a little bit deeper, we know when this was probably created as a SKU, right? Heck, this product might have been actually just introduced yesterday. I actually think that this is the next ski season model that is kind of super hard to get. Because I've been trying to get them, and I actually looked this morning, and I'm like, holy crap, they have it. And I'm like, do I make the slide or do I buy the skis? I wasn't sure. Right? So the idea is, from something as silly as one data point, look how much information we could either get exactly or infer. Now, we've got this one ski sold. But you sold it to a person, right? What else would you think that you could sell this person? Knowing that it's a late season sale. This is actually not a very big discount, by the way, in the world of skiing, right? So this is a hot ski, right? What else would you want to sell them?
Ski masks, ski bones, boots, bindings.
Boots, bindings. What is the price sensitivity of somebody who's buying this?
Low.
Low. They don't care. Right? What are the kinds of other services that you could potentially offer them to expand your offer to be just not in the I'm selling stuff at the cheapest available price or whatever business?
Warranties.
You can sell warranties.
You can sell them ski passes.
Sell them ski passes, right? You might even figure out from where they are to where they want to go. Or you might sit there and say, wow, we know you don't live by a ski hill because you're in Nebraska and there's a 4-foot hill there, right? But we'll send these to your resort if you're going skiing this weekend, right? How much would you pay for that?
Or you can
Yes.
sell his data to the ski resort.
You could sell, exactly, that little EULA that you sign, that little check mark, that little box that says, is it okay for I to do that, and then ship it to your house and all that other stuff. Most of the time you actually gave away your rights to sell that data so that Experian could use it for, I'm very interested in really expensive skis, right? Exactly. What other stuff? You guys, all we have is one data point. That's it. Look how much stuff we can get from one.
I guess to Luke's point though, like, how useful is that one data point? Because like I said, oh, like they like to ski. Well, that they might have been buying it as a gift for somebody, or
They might have been buying it as a gift.
So, like, can you really use just one data point, or how many data points do you need before you can start really making those?
I think that that's a fantastic question, right? But the issue is how you can, exactly, how you could use that, and you could infer a lot of stuff, but you could already start putting this in your system of record and start making predictions about it, or saying, hey, listen, I don't think there's really enough data here for me to make this prediction, so I'm going to put it into the little sandbox, or whatever, right? But let's say we had only got one pair of skis, right, for the season because these are, you know, highly allocated or whatever, then, you know, this actually does tell us something, right? Because guess what happens? When next ski season comes along, who is like the very first guy we want to hit up with the expensive boots and the warranty and all that other stuff? It's this guy, right? And so here is what we did, is we literally took one point and just started building and building, and then all of a sudden when and where and who and why and what do we predict, and all of a sudden that starts becoming this data about data. And in many cases, the data about data is more interesting than the data itself, right? I know it sounds weird, but if you're in Cisco, right? I don't know if any of you guys work for Cisco. Cisco sells networking gear, right? What they do is they want to make sure that if your text gets from one phone to the other, they have this wonderful mechanism of sending a packet out over the net, right? And they've got a bunch of information saying this packet came from here. And by the way, this is what I know about this packet. It's associated with the 7 more, right? So for the full message, it's 1 of 7 or something like that. And here is where the message ends, and here's where you send the confirmation and all that other stuff. This is the payload. This is actually the message that you're telling your loved one, I love you, I'm safe, or whatever. And yet all the information from this part and this part is the metadata. You can also use and aggregate this data and say, this is how much traffic is flowing from this spot to another spot. This is how big these average messages are getting. This is how fast people want them. Are they paying for some kind of premium service or quality of service or something or other? So there's a ton of information hidden here. In fact, when it comes to sales and marketing data, a lot of times when something happened is actually more important than what happened, right? Like, we just got a visitor to our website because we're buying this much traffic or whatever, and we're not making our numbers, or we're making our numbers, and all of a sudden we don't even care what they did. All we did is just cared about when, right? Might have been from where, something like that. Someone else is actually responsible for if it's sold or something. Anyway, this is, I really want you guys, when you think about data, to think about all the other stuff that is hidden, that if you just think about it, is also there, right? Because it's not necessarily a field in a spreadsheet, and yet if you think about it, it's there. Who is the largest metadata company in the world? Google. Why?
I see everything.
And they make predictions about everything? And they track everything, right? Who's the second largest? Facebook. Exactly. How does Facebook sell your personal data? They don't actually sell your personal data anymore, per se, because they get killed in the marketplace. How do they sell it? What if they found out that you're in a very expensive zip code and you go to Vegas 10 times a year? What are you probability to them? They have these things called whales, right? So they monetize you as a person based on this, predictions. Hey, listen, this guy is checking in at 10%. I don't know, he could be spoofing the system, right? I think he's checking in, right? He loves to go to Mandalay Bay, whatever, right? I don't think he's there for the shows, right? And Jason, you had a question?
Yeah.
No, okay. So Chandler?
I don't remember.
That's not you. You're not the big fish that Facebook just identified and sold for $100 per click or whatever. But I mean, so if you think about it, right? This is derived data, right? Or sometimes actually you just went looking for it about data that is more valuable than the data itself, because you could remonetize a hell of a lot of this stuff over and over again. Now there's all kinds of data governance issues, right? Some of this stuff is commingled data, and you got it because I got somebody's personal address and they didn't necessarily give me an opt-in or whatever, right? There's lots of issues with it, right? There's lots of hair on it. But in many ways, monetizing metadata and using metadata is a hell of a lot more important than using the data itself. Okay? The company that I run, we actually figured out how to make metadata and shape it in such a way that I could take data that is coming from ERP and make it look exactly the same way as data from CRM, exactly the same way from web traffic, exactly the same way from a Facebook feed, exactly the same way from a mobile feed, etc. You can't integrate that stuff. It's impossible, right? So how does actually Google work, right? As a fundamental business, you know, going back 15 years, when it was a bunch of guys in a garage, what did they do? Organize the world's information. What was the web back then? 10 million websites. How many different tools do you think it was written in all those different websites all over the world? Thousands? How many different languages? All of them, dozens, right? Hundreds. How do you organize that stuff? You integrate it? That's how IT at a big company does. They're like, okay, we're going to sit there and try to integrate all this stuff. Google says that's impossible. So what they did is they created this concept, and it wasn't, to be fair, it wasn't just them, but they're the ones that really kind of took it off. They created this concept called indexing. And they basically created a place where metadata exists about every web page. And they sat there and they said, well, this web page was published February 1st. 11,000 people visited last week, and 12,500 visited the week before. There's these 57 keywords on this website, right? There's 4 words we don't know on this website, right? It's in French. They started describing and describing and describing and describing and predicting and describing and learning and all that other stuff. Boom, 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 right? And then when you do your Google search box, they actually sit there and they bang away at the index itself. They don't actually go out and look at all these web pages anymore. That's crazy. In fact, a lot of them have changed, right, since they've done the indexing, right? And this gives them this little Chinese wall, plausible deniability, you know, blah, 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 blah. There's lots of different reasons why you would want to do something like this. Speed, security, right? Cost, because guess what's the size of this record versus the size of this record, right? It's 3 orders of magnitude smaller in many cases, right? That's fundamentally the technology behind Google and how they did it. Yes?
So is this content tagging or is that a different one?
So they actually started off tagging each website as a sticky object, and it was almost like, and we know this, and now content tagging is like, I'm a creator and this is my ad, and I'm gonna this, or this is, and then so you just start adding it. So that tagging part, that's all metadata. So in many cases, when you actually see something, the value isn't here, the value is in there, in the content and stuff like that. This is super easy. And so the business that we're building is actually solving the question your professor was asking about how do you make data that comes in all these zillions of different shapes, zillions of different quality levels, with different formats and all that other stuff. How do you get it all to act together? And we said, we think we could do it with metadata. And so far, so good. Right? Because this is wonderful, because guess what? A, you're not changing the data itself. So when you're integrating data, there's this process called ETL. This is horrible, and it's for marketing and sales, it's the worst enemy. So 1950s technologies basically says extract, transform, and load. I take something from one place, I transform it, and then I load the transformation.
So this is a way, if you don't have a data lake, right? So a lot of these legacy companies don't have a data lake. You can kind of act as if you have a data lake, right?
Virtual.
Yeah. And so are you saying that the stuff that you're doing is better applied to these legacy companies? Or
Absolutely.
Does it work for everybody?
They work for everybody,
Okay.
right? Oh my God, the hour is up. That was really super fast. I didn't even make my third point. I'm so sorry.
Well, that's okay. We've got enough to chew on with the first 2 points.
Okay.
The big and hairy points. Okay. So thanks so much, Victor. The latest model of this is probably newer and has fewer holes than the one that you got when you were here.
Thank you so much. It was my pleasure.
We'll see you guys next week.